You probably clicked on this video because you'd like to know, should you buy the Hyundai IONIQ 5 or the Ford Mustang Mach-E? And, well, that's what we're going to try and figure out and help you in your buying decision between two very popular electric SUVs. Hey guys, want to tell you about one of our new channels. It's called Out of Spec Scoots, and we review e-bikes all the way down to cool contraptions like this and scooters. Woo! So take a look at it on YouTube, Out of Spec Scoots. First off, I want to say I've driven and have extensive reviews of both of these vehicles on this channel. You can see my Hyundai IONIQ 5 limited driving review. This particular one is the SEL all-wheel drive, so mid-spec with the all-wheel drive. And this is a Mustang Mach-E first edition, which you can't actually buy anymore. It's hard to always get the exact cars we want, but essentially you can buy a very similar car today with being the premium all-wheel drive extended range. And well, that's kind of what we're working with. Nothing material here is different, just some options and packages might be out of sync. Anyway, let me start the video off by saying it doesn't matter which one of these you buy, you're going to have a great ownership experience. I know Mustang Mach-E owners that love their cars, that road trip them, that really enjoy them, and it's perfect for what they want. Conversely, I know Hyundai IONIQ 5 owners that love them, swear by them, and they're still new owners because this just came on sale, but it seems to be a really great car. However, if you're in the market for an electric SUV, these two are an interesting comparison because we get asked all the time, Kyle, would you buy this or that? And well, I don't actually have an answer for you right now. So let me run you through some of the specifications so I can show you just how similar each of these cars are. It's truly amazing. And then of course, we'll drive them and I'll share my final thoughts with them. So first, starting with the range. The Mustang Mach-E in first edition form here, all-wheel drive extended range is 270 miles on a charge. But there's a new trim level called the California Route 1 that you can now get in all-wheel drive. That's the new bit. And that for 2022 can do 312 miles in the EPA cycle. Now keep in mind this is EPA rated range, not exactly our own tested range, which we of course range test cars. And I'll be range testing this car very soon right here on this channel. However, so you're talking anywhere between 270 miles and 312 miles for the all-wheel drive version of Mustang Mach-E. The car costs anywhere from $55,000 to $60,000. You can pretty much get an equivalently spec priced car for this one. It's about $56,000 in today's money. There was a little bit of a price increase for 2022. So you're talking great range, pretty good value for money, 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds here. And of course, an American electric SUV, if you will. It's a Mustang. That's a different video. This Hyundai IONIQ 5 costs $52,000, again, mid-spec. You can again spec a higher trim level than this, the Limited, which gives you a glass roof, better sound system, different wheels, a few other little bits and bobs too. And that's about 55 grand. So they pretty much cost the same. You know, if we had a Limited and a maxed out Mach-E, you know, within $1,000 or $2,000. This spec and that spec have about $6,000 in between them, but that's just because this one's sort of a mid-trim level. In terms of range, the IONIQ 5 has less on the EPA cycle, but we'll see how it does in our testing. This is rated at 256, 258 miles of range, something like that in the EPA cycle. From what I've heard from Hyundai IONIQ 5 owners is maybe it's not as efficient in long singular vehicle charge range. I've already proven Mustang Mach-E to be incredible on a single charge. I've done over 310 miles in a Mustang Mach-E and still had like 15% state of charge left by the time I plugged in. Truly incredible long distance in the Mach-E when you keep your speed in check and when the wind is with you. Just like any electric car, both of these cars will be affected by temperature, wind, everything else. It's always hard to say, I drove a Mach-E on a perfectly warm sunny day and got 300 plus miles versus it's 12 degrees outside right now and I drove an IONIQ 5 and got less than that. It's just not apples to apples. But I will say, in terms of battery pack capacity, the Mach-E has an incredible advantage. Installed capacity is 99 kilowatt hours. So this has basically a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack in it. And then they let you use 88 of it currently. There will be a software update to allow 91 kilowatt hours usable. Conversely, the IONIQ 5, I don't actually know the installed and usable capacity, but it's around 77 kilowatt hours, so just under 80 kilowatt hours. So this has over a 10 kilowatt hour advantage of more storage capacity. It also costs a little bit more, but not that much more. So very reasonably priced for the Mach-E, considering you get such a big battery pack. Now, battery size isn't anything. It also comes down to charging. So like I said, we're getting specs out of the way first. This car will hit a peak max charging rate I've seen at around 163 kilowatts or so. I think it's rated for 150. And recently, Ford has altered the charging curve. This is how long it can sustain its power level for, to allow for faster charging up to about 90% state of charge now. I haven't personally tested it, but I've heard, and this car is on the software, that it is a little bit better. However, this is a charging monster. There's two things to consider when going on a road trip. The first is, what's your initial full charge range, right? And so I think the Mach-E is ultimately gonna have a little bit more range than this does. But, and that's just a gut feeling, I haven't tested that yet. But this thing probably is gonna be the faster road tripper just because it charges at a manufacturer quoted 235 kilowatt peak, but I've seen 240 and even slightly above 240 on IONIQ 5 and EV6, the eGMP sister cars on this chassis. So in terms of charging speed, I'll give up some range and take the insanely fast charging capabilities of this car. Again, you're talking 160 kilowatt peak for a little bit versus 240 kilowatt peak. And it's not just the peaks that we're looking at, it's just the insane curve on this IONIQ 5. If you're interested in this, I have a whole charging video on Mustang Mach-E, and I will have a whole video on charging the IONIQ 5 from 0 to 100% and analyzing the curves. So let's boil it down. Most people have a house who have an EV, they drive around town to work, whatever, and you do some errands around town, and maybe once or twice a year you go on a road trip. The road trip time isn't a buying consideration for most people, unless you're me and I'm always on the road. So for me, you know, this is just a clear winner right off the bat because I need the fastest charging possible. That's not going to be the summary of this video though. We're going to continue on. But essentially, both cars will be able to accomplish any daily driving task you throw at it, have plenty of space for everything. I'll show you all of that, and you can't go wrong. That's what makes this decision so difficult, and even more difficult to pick a clear winner between these two cars. But what do you say we start with the Mustang Mach-E? I'll take you on a tour of the car, we'll drive it, and then we'll see what's better or what's worse in the IONIQ 5. This is my friend Patrick's Mustang Mach-E. He has a great YouTube channel called Mach-E Vlog. So subscribe to him and thank him for donating his car, driving it up here at 6:30 in the morning. Sun's just rising. It's now 7:30 or so. And allowing us to show you around this car. It might be after that. We really have to hurry up. We have a full day of filming with that IONIQ 5. But I wanted to answer this question. His car is a first edition, but essentially we are going to treat this as like sort of a premium extended range all-wheel drive for 2022. So, you know, a good range, all this stuff. Let me show you around some of the intricacies of Mustang Mach-E that might play into your buying decision. Your phone can be used as a key, which is super cool, except when it doesn't work. But I think most of the time it does work. Ford does give you one key with the car as a backup, so you can, of course, unlock, lock, do your thing. The door handles are quite odd on both of the cars. I'll show you how the Mach-E works. You push this little button, and then you pull here. Really cool doors. I've gone in depth on how they work, all the safety features in them, and stuff like that. In terms of rear seat room, the Mach-E has plenty, actually, of really good rear seat. The thing is, styling-wise, because it has this sloping roof line, it looks like this blue bit is the top from a distance, but you actually can go all the way up to the glass roof bit up here. So let me just shove some things out of the way. Jumping in the back seat, you can see even the passenger seat's super far back, great knee room, amazing headroom. The only problem is this sort of roof line comes super low for the styling aspect, but once you're in here and you duck your head and you get around it, man, is it super comfortable back seat. I have to say, I've always been impressed with the carrying capacity of Mach-E, and of course, no different even after driving some extra cars. What's funny is a year ago today, if you wanted an electric SUV, pretty much the only option on the market was the Model Y. And now there's like Polestar 2, XC40 Recharge, ID4, this, IONIQ 5, EV6. There's more that I'm forgetting too. It's insane. Anyway, take a look at this. Trunk comes up super high. I can stand right underneath it. You can also program the trunk to not go max height, which is how he had his set. Huge trunk space, seats go down, super practical. You're not giving up on any daily usability here in this particular car. And then of course your power trunk. So they're kind of roughly the same size. They all have good spatial stuff. Let's drive the Mach-E. I'll talk about some of the driver assistance that this car has, some of the driver assistance that might be coming, and then we'll compare it to the Hyundais, and this will just be a super quick video. A quick front trunk comparison. You can see the Hyundai IONIQ 5 being all-wheel drive gives you this tiny front trunk, and it is completely filled with essentially an extension cable. Meanwhile, over here in the Mustang Mach-E, it's got a pretty sizable front trunk, I have to say, with built-in kind of drink holders. And yeah, this is a much better front trunk. And the Hyundai one, well, I think it's a little bit too small. For me though, I don't really use my front trunk. I have one in my personal car, and yeah, it's not a huge deal. But for some people, it's all about the front size. And if it is, the Mach-E is the winner there. All right, so I'm sitting in the Mach-E. To start it, I push this little power button right over here, so you do need to physically hit the button. And now the car is on. It's cold, so heated steering wheel on, heated seats. Got to hit this and then pull this all the way up. Nice. There's also an automatic heated seat setting. We're at 70% state of charge, 145 miles projected. It's cold, and I think Patrick drives pretty quick. So let's go for a drive. We are in, there's a couple different driving modes here. Let's see, there's whisper, engage, and unbridled. First off, this is a sheet of ice. Should we test some of the traction control? How quick it is to respond? So we're on ice. I'm just gonna floor it. Instant, you can hear it clicking away. Just awesome. I just love safety technology in cars. So let's go out this way. In terms of sight lines, wonderful view out the front. Take a look out the windshield. You can see you sort of have this view of sitting on top of the car. Your seating position's nice. The steering wheel itself is nice. And, you know, from an everyday driving standpoint, there's not too much to dislike here. I mean, there's a couple things that I've noticed from driving Mach-E that kind of have bugged me over time, and I'll demonstrate one of them now. I'm lifting off the throttle, going full regen in one pedal driving mode. What it does is it goes hard regen, then it lifts off, coasts, and then it grabs friction brakes. So it's just kind of odd how it doesn't do it in one nice swoop. We'll test the IONIQ 5 to see how its one pedal calibration is. But so far I would say this is poor one pedal driving calibration, and I've said that since day one, especially when compared to competitors. We're not going to do anything crazy, but let's go test some handling around some on-ramps, roundabouts. Here we go. Woohoo! Things are flying around, coming in hot. The thing with the thing with Mach-E is driving it kind of spiritedly on the street is actually hilarious because you get so much rear end rotation. Look at that, it's just kind of flying around the back end there, that it encourages you to drive quickly. It is a fun car to kind of toss around, and that's good and bad. On one hand, it's good because it's fun and you're losing traction and you're sliding around. The second hand is the car's so under-tired. It's on these little skinny bicycle tires, like 225s or something, for a car that weighs as much as this. And they did that for range, but it means that your grip levels are ultimately lower, which means your braking distances are longer. It means your cornering's longer. Comment below if you'd like to see sort of IONIQ 5 versus Mach-E versus ID4, all these things, in sort of an instrumented driving test to look at how many cornering forces it can pull, its braking distances, acceleration and drag race, things like this, because yeah, we're sort of locking down a new facility where we can do kind of that stuff out here in Colorado, which will be great. But overall, driving Mach-E is an incredibly quiet experience. It's comfortable and it has great driver assistance. So I don't think this car has Blue Cruise, but what it does have is active lane centering and some other really, really nice things. So actually, I think it does have Blue Cruise. That's cool. It wasn't on right there, but I think this one might. Essentially what it'll do is it has adaptive cruise control, keeps you in the center of your lane. I've used it on long trips. It's a wonderful system, and it just asks you to touch the wheel once in a while. There is eye tracking capability that either will be updated or is updated to this car. That essentially means you don't actually have to touch the steering wheel on pre-mapped highways, and that's a luxurious feeling. That's kind of nice. as long as you're looking straight on. So have to say, driving Mach-E and an everyday proposition is really totally fine, no issues. It's a little bit firm, it's a little bit bouncy on the rear end. You guys know my thoughts on Mach-E. I don't need to make another hour-long video evaluating the entire car, but I will say a couple things that stand out as negatives. The first would be the braking system, the brake-by-wire calibration. The second would be the one-pedal driving calibration. The third would be the suspension bounciness and maybe a little bit of that under tire, but you can always get more beefy tires on this thing. So essentially, in all the sporty driving stuff, I don't like the Mach-E, but on a road trip, great space, great noise, and yeah, it's just a really easy car to live with every day. So you can't go wrong with this purchase. And honestly, what I think is going to determine the outcome here is just the charging speed of the IONIQ 5 is just so good. But again, if you don't take road trips, who cares about charging speed? Then it's just like, which one do you like better? I don't know. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, nailed it.
Let's go drive that one. Zach's gonna start making some videos with us, so you'll see him in his car on our channel more. We just decided this literally at this exact moment. Anyway, this is his IONIQ 5 in cyber gray, right?
What's that?
Cyber gray?
Yeah, cyber gray.
Cyber gray, great color. I think my dad's getting one in cyber gray now. I don't know. His whole IONIQ 5 situation's been a little wild, I have to say. Anyway, this is a cyber gray Hyundai IONIQ 5. It is not as tall as Mustang Mach-E, I would say. I think. We'll park them next to each other at the end. It's got cool door handles. I love the door handles, actually. They feel good. They're kind of ribbed in the back. Take a look at that. I'll refrain from any jokes. I just like how you can slide in and open them like this. Back seat test. First off, rear door, much bigger. Really nice. Big open space here to get in as well. And then when I do sit in, wow, pretty nice, I have to say. Oh! Rear air vent right here on the side. That's nice. Great headroom. Again, it's not like the people in the back seat didn't buy the car, so who cares what they think, but plenty of room for anyone back there. Great leg room and stuff. The big difference here is the charging on this car, as mentioned, and it might actually be on, why won't it open? Holding this down, unlock, there we go. Both cars use the same charging port. Both cars can use the same charging networks. Both cars get free charging on the networks, but not so much. This gets 3 years of free charging on Electrify America for 30-minute sessions, which is fine because you're not going to be there that long. That gets 250 kilowatt hours, which you'll blow through in a day. So that's a big difference here, is if you take a lot of road trips, by far, right off the bat, I'm going to tell you, not only do you get free charging for 3 years, which will add up to a huge savings, actually, if you road trip as much as I do, you'll also be in and out of the stations a lot quicker in this car. So, just like I mentioned, if you're a road tripper, this is sort of a no-brainer situation. If you are driving around town, well, that's when this video maybe becomes more relevant. In the backs of this car, plenty of trunk space. I would say feels a little bit wider than Mach-E. Look, we could get out the measurement tools. You can put whatever you want. Seats go down in both cars. It's not that big of a difference. Let's drive it. The wheels on this one aren't too bad either. The one that I drove recently for our first drive review was in California. That was a limited trim on the 20-inch wheels. How big are these tires? Let's take a look. They're on Michelin 235s all around. Okay, square stance, very nice. So, getting in, yeah, both cars you have to use a start button for. I mentioned in the Mach-E, you can use the key to start the car, as your phone, I should say. Only in the limited trim of this can your cell phone act as a key. I'm gonna hit the start button, everything comes to life. First off, I guess, which cabin do you like better, Jordan? They're just a little different.
They're different, yeah.
But neither of them are offensive. The Ford steering wheel offends you, Jordan?
A little bit. I think this is much better looking.
Better looking steering wheel. And it's got 4 dots because that's the Morse code for H, for Hyundai. So yeah, this has a little bit, I would say, I think it's a better cabin in here personally. The seats are way nicer. Seats are wonderful in this car. And not to say they're bad in the Mach-E, but I've spent like significant time in that car and I start to kind of move around a little bit. These are the seats I want to have a road trip in. Auto hold on. We have different levels of regen here. We're going to drive both cars in one pedal Wait, do I need to be in drive for this? There's max, there's iPedal on. It's ripping the heater right now. We have different levels of automatic climate control. This is all, I mean, both cars pretty much do the same stuff here. Again, one feature versus this. This car has sounds of nature though. So let's see if I can find it. Sounds of nature. Maybe it's in, I know where it is. It's in music. If I could find where that is. Home, music, media, thank you. Sounds of nature. Let's listen to birds chirping. Wait, should we see what other ones they have? Would you like to listen to a snowy village?
So we talked about this in the Genesis because half of the sounds of nature are not actually nature.
Right, it's people affecting nature. Anyway, first off, this car just feels a little bit more fun. This is, like, I use this very arbitrary or just like not accurate, very Kyle level of, does this car improve my day? And the thing is, just the seating position, the steering wheel with these lovely knurled regen paddles on the back, seemingly pretty good one pedal drive. I can't actually remember if it comes to a stop or not. Let's try it. So accelerating up, coming down. iPedal does come to a stop. Let's test the smoothness. Nice. Ooh. But it's still a little bit of the Ford thing where it lets off and then grabs friction. So I wouldn't say it's totally, yeah, not totally perfect, but better than the Mach-E's one pedal driving. Anyway, this car, does it improve your day? And I'm instantly like, I just am happier to be in here. And look, that is a personal opinion thing. You can buy a car based on specs, you can buy a car based off of emotion, or you can buy a car based off of a blend of two. And for me, it's always has to be a blend. First off, the car has to be able to accomplish what I want from it. And this certainly does pretty much everything. Look at how competent it is at cornering too, just shredding it around. Way more controlled in a performance environment than the Mach-E. Mach-E's sliding around, you're getting some opposite lock. It's a little bit of this top heaviness feeling. This seems to sit a little bit lower and arguably feels a little bit tighter and sportier than the Mach-E. What do you think for the passenger seat?
Yeah, I feel like I'm in the car versus the Mach-E. I've owned Mustangs, and the Mach-E feels like I'm sitting kind of on top of a Mustang.
Totally
Still feels
agree.
like a Mustang to me, which is an unpopular opinion. But this one feels like you're integrated into the car.
Yeah, I agree. So here we are coming around the off-ramp, juicing it. Just so much of a much more refined driving experience right here in terms of sportiness, I would say. I'd love to get both cars on track. It's possible the Mach-E is still faster, but you can tell this car has more tire, not only more tire, a better tire, and it's cold out right now. It's warming up, but it's still something, temperature 21 degrees Fahrenheit outside. This just feels like a much better package. Now, it definitely feels smaller than the Mach-E. You know, definitely, I don't know if it's narrower or not, but it just feels smaller. There's, again, very little difference between the cars. Both will be able to accomplish what you want. I think at the end of the day, I prefer to drive this. Now, in terms of driver assistance, this car has similar levels of driver assistance to Mach-E, where it will do adaptive lane, adaptive distance control for adaptive cruise control. It will do lane centering, lane departure, but it also puts on, oh no, in the Limited, you get like this display of cars in the passenger side with camera, not in the SEL. But you get lane changes, which is really nice. I don't think the Mach-E does lane changes with its driver assistance system, even with Blue Cruise. But on this one, I don't believe it does eye tracking. So you got to touch the steering wheel in this car, but it will make lane changes for you. In the Mach-E, you don't have to touch the steering wheel, but you have to make your own lane changes. At the end of the day, it's like they both have their own little thing. Let's just test the traction control on this. We're just on a sheet of ice right now. Ready? Gonna just floor it. Less clicking, still some, but less fanfare than the Mustang when wheels start to spin. So very impressed here with this car. In terms of turning radius, they're both pretty good, but sort of this low speed application, I would say, of just maneuvering around. You know, the Mach-E has this clunk every time you go into reverse if you're moving forwards. This doesn't have it. This really genuinely feels like a superior engineered product to me. Just, it's more holistic. I just think it's a better well thought out electric car and driving experience. So let's go wrap it up with our final thoughts. So we've done a little shakedown comparison between these two cars. We also took a look at both of the apps as well. They both pretty much do the same thing. The one issue with the Ford app is it doesn't tell you if the car is currently locked or unlocked. It sounds like maybe there's a new update coming for this at some point. The Hyundai does. You can also select the exact temperature you want to set your cabin in the Hyundai, but it's like 5 click points and it's not super intuitive. So at the end of the day, if you're buying a car for an app, as Jordan just said, buy a Tesla Model Y because the app is wonderful for that car. Anyway, you're walking in, you're trying to buy an electric SUV. Are you going to buy a Mustang Mach-E or a Hyundai IONIQ 5? Again, we're leaving sort of availability and markups out of the equation, but both cars are in relatively limited availability with some markups on them depending on the dealer. So I think it's a very similar situation. Basically, it comes down to if you want something American, if you want something that I think has a really good outward image to drive, looks wonderful, of course, the Mustang Mach-E is a really awesome car. And again, with either of these cars, you can't go wrong. But I think we've kind of decided that the IONIQ 5 drives better, charges significantly better, gets you free charging as well, and is priced a little bit cheaper. And it just, I think, is the clear winner here. If you're between the two, you just get an IONIQ 5. If you can't find an IONIQ 5, get a Mustang Mach-E, and you're going to be just as happy. It doesn't really matter either way, but that's the one I'd be taking home.